James Dworkin was the Chancellor at Purdue University's Westville campus for 16 and a half years. He's our special guest, and we'll hear reflections on his life as a leader next on Lakeshore Focus. Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. I especially enjoy the shows where I have a guest who has been a significant leader in Northwest Indiana. The show has no specific subject or issue. It's an interview with someone whose reflections on life experiences and their personal journey have meaning for us. Dr. James Dworkin was the Chancellor at Purdue University Westville, and now after the combining of the two regional campuses into Purdue University Northwest, he has stepped down from that position. So we welcome you to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Keith. It's nice to be back with you.
And you've been out of the position since last summer, right?
Yes, I officially stepped down on June the 30th of 2016.
Okay. And so probably the audience who's looking at this probably is wondering what these stuffed animals are sitting here, and I'm going to just say this is later in the show. We're going to talk about this, so they're going to have to stick in here with us.
It's a little teaser, right?
It's a tease.
We will tell you about those later.
Yes, so we'll get to those. They're very cute, though, by the way. So, you know, I like to kind of jump in with an interesting question sometimes, and I mean, you've been in education for a long time. You've done a lot of things. You know, can you think back to a time where just you had a relationship with a student, or there was a student in your life, or that you just felt like, man, I really had an impact on this person?
Sure, that's a good question. And also, thanks for having me on the show. When I first started as Chancellor, I started this idea of having open office hours. And so students would come in all the time. And I continued to do that all through the time I was Chancellor. And so I have so many students about students. But I think probably one that I think is particularly telling is that I had a student come in, and actually I think with her mother, and they were talking about some problems in the family, and they were thinking about quitting school and all that. And I talked to them for a long time. In fact, I probably had several meetings with them, and I think I finally convinced the young lady that it was a good idea to stay in school, the importance of getting your degree and how that would help in the labor market. And I think she went on and got a nursing degree, and I think she went on and had and also got a master's degree. So I think that kind of a situation really made me feel good that I helped that student not only with the situation at hand, but also with something that would help her for the rest of her life. And I would say that I hear from many students all the time. I'll hear from either email or text, and I can tell from what part of my life I knew them, because if they call me professor, I know that was when I was at Purdue in West Lafayette. If they call me Dean Dworkin, then it was when I was at the Cranner School as a dean. If they call me Chancellor, I'll know it's from the last 16 years. So my wife Nancy and I both put students first throughout my entire career, so I'm really happy you asked that question, because we have so many students that we're proud of. Many of them went on to, go to a pharmacy school or veterinary school or medical doctors, and so it's really a pretty good experience to see these young students when they're 18 and then and watch them turn into mature young adults, and there'll be a great impact on society.
I've always noticed that when I've talked to students on your campus, people who've attended there, they all talk about you in first person, like they know you, and that was always impressed me, because that gave me the impression that they felt like they could approach you, that they could talk to you, they could go to your office, and I just always admired that. Why did you kind of choose to be that personal with your students and your staff?
Well, I think it goes back to my early training. I remember my parents were like that, and my grandparents especially. My grandfather, Joe, would say, we're no better than anybody else. And he was a shoe salesman his whole life, worked in a shoe store and talked to everybody. And my dad went to medical school, and I think in his entire medical school class there were just a few Jewish kids like himself and one black female. And so I sort of got that from the beginning, that you should be friendly and talk to everybody. So I think I knew every employee at Purdue North Central. I knew not every student, because there were many thousand, but anybody who I would run into, I would speak to them and say hello and ask them how they're doing. I'd always ask them about their classwork, how they're doing, what they're studying. And so I did have many students come in and approach me and ask me questions about careers and about graduate school and things like that. And I just think it's a way to show that you're interested in their careers. And I think also that way you'll get more realistic feedback if they have any problems.
Yeah. not every chancellor or president of a university chooses to be as active in the community as you chose to be. I mean, they do generally, but some kind of stick to their campus. But you really reached out to the community and spent a lot of time in the region, in the state, doing things beyond your campus. Why did you choose to do that?
Well, when I was back at Purdue in West Lafayette, our graduates from the Krannert School, that's the management school, they were spread out all over the country and actually all over the world. And so while we did some involvement in the West Lafayette community, we did a lot of engagement with our graduates. So when I got to Purdue North Central, I was doing a lot of engagement with our graduates, which I did, but most of our graduates were teachers and also nurses. And so I figured that we had to expand that set. And so I decided to go and talk to bankers and people that worked in hospitals and the business people, and I got involved with United Way. I'm still on the United Way board.
You're still involved with a lot of things
yeah,
at this point.
yeah, I do get involved with things. So I think that was, I knew that I was going to have to raise some funds for this building that we eventually built. And I knew from some training I've had that before you can raise funds, you have to raise friends. And so, again, my wife Nancy and I would go out and we'd meet with people and we'd have a little friend-raising time. And once you're friendly with somebody, like I am with you, it's a lot easier for me to come in and talk to you about anything, like if I had a fundraising idea, than if I just come into you for the first time and say, oh, here, by the way, my name's Jim Dworkin, I want $1 million. That doesn't usually work too well. And so one of the reasons
it's not working out real well when you do that, right?
No. So one of the reasons we went into the community was to get to know people, and I had many opportunities, like I said, serving on United Way and serving on the Barker Mansion board, and just it's just such a great opportunity to get to meet people and be on the Horizon Bank board and things like that.
So what's it like to not to have to wear the uniform every day, the jacket and the tie, the suit and so forth? You get to dress like you want to dress now, right?
Yes, I like being much more casual. Actually, yesterday I had to go into Carpentersville, Illinois, and I had to put a suit and tie on. It was a little different for me. But I really enjoyed my time as being the chancellor. But, for everybody, there comes a time when it's time to move on and do something else. And so I must say that I do miss some of the daily encounters, but I still have an office at the campus. And so I go in there to the new building, and I go and I will talk to students, or I may shoot a few baskets. And I have an office. I do a little work in there. But I don't miss the day-to-day having appointments from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. I kind of like being a bit more of a free agent.
8 to 5 would have been a short day for you.
That was a
wouldn't
short
it?
day, right?
I started to say, so what'd you do with all your suits and ties? You still got them?
I gave away a lot of ties.
Okay.
I gave away a lot of suits. And actually, I have several suits left and some ties, but I only wear them very, very seldom.
When you just kind of have to, right?
When I have to.
So you've been here in this region for that 16 and a half years. You actually now, plus the time you've gone, 17, 18 years. What have you seen change in this region in that from the time you came here to now? What have you noticed mostly has changed in Northwest Indiana?
Well, I think there's a lot more interest in doing things as a community in Northwest Indiana. When I first came here, it was even in LaPorte County, it was a Michigan City and LaPorte. You wouldn't really drive across to go from one to the other very often, and they were big rivals. I think it's good to have a rivalry in like sports between Michigan City High School and LaPorte High School, but even like going back to the United Way, to have one United Way, and now the YMCA is having much more cooperation. The cooperation you see among the counties in economic development and workforce development, I think that's been one big change. And I think the thing is, people now realize that no matter where a business goes in, whether it goes into St. John, or whether it goes into LaPorte, or whether it goes into Chesterton, it's good for the entire region. So I think that kind of a regional thinking, like is promoted by the Northwest Indiana Forum, is really important. So I think that's been one big change that I've seen. I think another.
Why did you think that changed?
I just think people kept talking about it and kept seeing that they weren't getting very far with just trying to do things on their own. I mean, there's this notion of efficiencies, and why should you do things 4 and 5 times if you only have to do it once? So why do we need to have a different United Way in LaPorte City and a different one in Michigan City? Why can't we have just one organization? It's actually the same kind of a situation with Purdue North Central and Purdue Calumet being more efficient to be Purdue Northwest with one chancellor, and you save a lot of money, and there's a lot of efficiencies, and Actually, students get a lot more opportunities to take courses on both campuses. So I think it's just another example of the kinds of things that have been happening. And I just think people are getting it in their head that that makes more sense to do things that way.
That's a good message today, particularly in the light of the kind of the nation's climate. We need to talk to each other.
We definitely need to talk to each other.
The more we talk to each other,
Yes.
the more we understand
Absolutely.
and can work together.
Having been a mediator and arbitrator for a long time, it's really good to be able to listen. And you may not agree with the other side's position, but just to be able to listen and to empathize and say, I understand your position, I may not agree with you. And so there's a way to deal with that kind of thing.
Can you think of, in your career, looking back, just one kind of defining moment where it just really had a huge impact on you? It's like, wow, this really kind of changed how I looked at things or how I did things?
That's a good question. I think in my career, I'd have to probably pick, going back to when I was in West Lafayette. I had a phone call from the guy that was then the dean of the Krannert School, and his name was Ron Frank. And he said to me on the phone, the associate dean is retiring, and I would like to hire you as the associate dean. I mean, there was no search or anything. And I thought to myself, wow, that's really an amazing opportunity for me.
And that's unusual at a university not to have the search,
Yeah,
right?
right. And it was an internal thing. And so I went and talked to him, and I had been working in the graduate school as an associate dean, but I'd never been an associate dean for a school. So this was way back in 1989, and I thought, you know, this is going to be a defining moment in my career. I have an opportunity to be an associate dean of one of the best business schools in the United States, and I have an opportunity to use my people skills to work with people. And who knew it would lead to being a chancellor and being on all these boards I've been on, but I think that moment there, getting that opportunity, which I'm very thankful for, was something that has helped me the rest of my career.
Did you consider not doing it?
No, not for
Okay.
not for New York Second. I went in and talked to him, and of course I talked to my wife Nancy, and we considered it. But it was a great opportunity, and I had so many opportunities to look at dean's opportunities at other good schools around the country because the Krannert School is so well known.
So in the 16 and a half years you were at North Central campus in Westville, what do you feel you're kind of most proud of that you've accomplished, or what was the thing that you did you're like, man, I'm really pleased with this?
Well, I had about 5 or 6 big goals when I first started, but I knew we needed to make it a complete campus. I knew we needed a facility where students could work out and where there could be big meetings, and because people would say to me all the time, well, you know, Chancellor, I have a class at 9 o'clock and then I don't have another one until 1 and I have nothing to do on campus. And so I worked really hard on getting the funding for the Student Services and Activities Complex, and it was a great honor.
Which is the newest building, right?
Yeah, the newest building. It was a great honor. On April 8th of last year, the trustees held a meeting up here, and they actually named the building after me. So it's called the James B. Dworkin Student Services and Activities Complex. And when I go in there nowadays, you know, anytime I go in there, people come into me and they'll give me a hug and say, thank you for getting this building, because this, I mean, I go in there every day and there's 20s, 30, 40 kids working out, playing basketball, working on all this equipment. And I think that's what we needed to make a complete campus out of the Purdue North Central campus.
I'm not sure people appreciate the significance of that as much, because I remember talking to you years ago and even hearing people say, Westville's about the only campus in the Purdue system that hasn't got a new building forever, and we've been trying to get one up here.
Yeah.
You worked at this for like almost the entire time trying to get that building.
A lot of work and a lot of fundraising. I raised about $3.7 million. I probably started thinking about it way back in the year 2000, but it takes a while before you can get to know people. So I had to get to know all the state legislators, and all the legislators around here, whether Republican or Democrat, helped out. So that's another good lesson for you. You should be able to work across both aisles, and they both understood the need and how important it would be. And so yeah, that to me is, I'm proud of a lot of things. Like we're the first campus to go smoke-free. I'm really proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that we have all these new undergraduate degrees, and I'm proud of the fact that we combined the two campuses. But if you ask me for one thing that I'm the most proud of, it's having that new building on campus. And it's kind of fun when you see in the newspapers there's a meeting that will be held at Dworkin Center, and it just makes you feel good.
My son's name is James also, and it happened to be years ago that the Secretary of State in the state of Missouri was named James Kirkpatrick. And so we drove by this building one day and saw it, and I was like, sit on the sign, sit here, this can be your building, you know. So it is kind of fun to have your name on the building.
Yes.
So in terms of all the other things that you've done around here, what do you think we still need to do in this region to really move forward?
Probably the number one thing we need to do for Northwest Indiana is have better jobs. we have a lot of jobs, but a lot of the jobs we have are minimum wage jobs. And as you know, the minimum wage in Indiana is really low. It's not even close to being a living wage. And so we need to have better jobs. And so the only way you're going to get better jobs is if you have better skilled workforce. And the way people get their better skills, one way is to go to college, which certainly I'm in favor of. But another way, you can go through apprentice programs. I mean, it's perfectly great to be a welder or to be an electrician or to be a plumber. Those are great skills. Which
How do we work around that? Because it's kind of like chicken and egg. You need great skilled people to have great jobs here, but you need great jobs for people to want to go after those skills. So,
well, I mean, basically, it's going to take a while to generate the number of people in Northwest Indiana and in the state of Indiana that have the college degree that they need, or I call them 21st century skills. I mean, for a while, it's just not going to happen. It's going to take a while. And there's always going to be the lower level jobs, like the people we need to clean hotels and things like that. And those will be minimum wage jobs, people that work at fast food. But the middle jobs that people used to have, they've been de-skilled, so to speak, because of computers replaced, you know, the steel industry, how a lot of jobs have been replaced. So then you have two choices in the world today. You're going to have the lower level job, or you get the kind of skill so you can get a higher level job. And believe me, if LaPorte County and Lake County were more like Valparaiso and they had 40 or 50% of the workforce with college degrees, there would be people who want to come in there because they'd see the skilled workforce. And instead of people who get a college degree at Valparaiso or Purdue moving to Texas or moving to San Francisco or moving to Portland, Oregon, they'll stay here if they see the right opportunities. So it's a combination of the great jobs and needing the skills, but also you have to have the climate in the area. You need to have the kind of activities that young people like to partake of in a city, and that means you have to have movies, you have to have restaurants, and you have to have places where they can have dances and
all the things they like.
Yep.
Right.
It's called the creative class.
You know, as you've stepped out of this role, and you're doing other things with your life at this point, I've always saw you as kind of a person who has a lot of wisdom. Where does that come from for you? You know, I mean, do you feel wise? Is that an interesting question? Do you feel wise?
Well, I don't know that I would go that far to feel wise, but I feel like I've had a lot of experience in so many different areas that I get asked for a lot of advice, and there's not too many areas where I haven't had an example where I could give people advice. I don't usually try to tell people what to do. I try to give them opportunities to answer questions for themselves. I mean, would you like to, if you don't go to college or don't get skills, you want to work the rest of your life at a fast food restaurant and make minimum wage, or if you consider what would happen if you go to school and then you could maybe become an accountant or become, you know, a lawyer or whatever you want to do. So I don't know that I would say I feel wise, but I feel like I have lots of in my head where I've had experiences dealing with many people and many situations. So I think I can give people at least some good questions to consider if they want to think about what they want to do.
I think the difference is people who have life experiences and really interpret those and understanding them and think them through, and you're one of those kind of people as opposed to somebody just kind of skirts past them and go, well, didn't learn anything there. Is there one person in your life that just had a huge impact, maybe besides this dean, but somebody else in your life that just, man, really shaped who you were?
I would say my parents were very influential on me. My dad was a doctor and my mom was a homemaker, and between the two of them, I learned a lot. My mom was more the softer side, and I learned those kind of skills. My dad was very organized, and I could just see him. But this was way before computers, and I'd see him working his books all the time, writing his checks, and so I think I learned some of those organizational skills, and so I think family is really important.
So what would you say to a young person, because we have a lot of them today, and you've seen them at the school, who don't have those parents in their life that many of us had? What do you say to them to replace that?
I think you need to find a mentor. I think you need to find somebody that will work with you. I know in the Michigan City schools and other schools around here, they'll have mentorship programs. And I think that that's very important because people need role models in their life. And so I would try to find a mentor. Maybe, I know some people might consider a career in the military, which I think is great. If you do that, you can probably find a mentor and somebody else who's been in the military before you and ask them some questions. But it is, that's one of the, and then also, this may be a good segue into what we're going to talk about later, but it has to start from the very beginning. I mean, having been around reading my children's books in many different elementary schools, I've seen some areas where children have no books, hardly even know their first and last name, and other areas where they've read probably 1,000 books by the time they're in kindergarten, if you can believe that. And so this idea of having somebody around at the beginning. So that's why these programs around here, Head Start programs or Imagination Station or anything where people can put their kids in and they can have some role models and mentoring at early ages is really important, because there's Nobel Prize winning economists who have done studies showing that every dollar invested in early childhood education makes a big difference.
So interesting, because the show that's going to follow this one is about early childhood education, so it's a great segue. So you've jumped into writing children's books.
Yes, I have had a lot of fun.
This is your first one, right?
I have two children's books.
Okay.
Can I lift these up here?
Sure.
So the first one I did is called The Dog and the Dolphin. And actually my wife and I were on Sanibel Island, and we were walking on the beach, and I saw this dog playing with a dolphin. And so I thought this would be a fun book to write. And this is called a children's picture book. And basically it's meant for ages maybe about kindergarten through about third or fourth grade. And between my wife and I, we've been to 150 different schools, and we go to hospitals, we go to libraries, we go to churches, all kind of places. People ask us to read this book. And this one was so popular, I'd get asked by the kids, well, will you do a second book? Oops.
That's okay.
And I said, yeah. And so I did a second book. This was called The Dog and the Jet Ski. And actually,
It's a great picture on the front.
I have a great artist. His name is Michael Chelich. He's from Munster. You can invite him on the show one time. He can tell you a lot about art and how he does it. But anyway, one day when we were living in Michigan City, we were in a dunescape. We were on the fourth floor of this apartment building, and we heard on the beach somebody yell, "Clear the beach, there's a mad dog on a jet ski." So we looked out the window, and we actually saw a dog on a jet ski. And I won't go into that whole story, but it gave me the idea to try to write this story. And both these books have been very popular. And in fact, the third book I'm doing is I'm on the board of the Shirley Hines Land Trust, and they asked if we'd do a book with Red the dog getting lost in one of their properties and meeting some of the creatures, and each of the creatures helps them get home.
Do you have a name for it yet?
We just don't have
Dog in the Woods or something?
Yeah.
It'd have to be a little more exciting than that, right?
We have to find something exciting. I've had several people give me ideas. But so this is Red, the star of the books, and in this he's wearing these goggles. And actually, I tell all the young kids, I read to kindergarten, first grade, and then second, third, fourth, and fifth. And I say, when you put goggles on a dog, they're actually called doggles. And they all laugh and they don't believe me. But if you look it up, just anybody who's listening to the program, look it up. That's actually true. That these are doggles. And so in the book, both my books, I have themes for my books. So my themes I like are friendship, diversity, and helping others in times of need. I've read a lot lately too. In some Catholic schools and religious schools, and one little boy raised his hand and said, "Mr. Jim, do you write books about God?" I said, "No, I haven't done that. A lot of people are better at that than I am, but I think all the themes in my book are themes that God would be very happy with. Friendship."
That's a good answer.
Friendship,
That's a really
diversity,
good answer.
and helping others in times of need. And then this is his dolphin friend. And actually, it's interesting. I told you I saw this dolphin playing with the dog on Sanibel Island. And just 2 weeks ago, my wife and I were down there. And the last day before we left to come back home, we were walking the beach, and probably 20 yards out into the Gulf of Mexico was a dolphin, like swimming along with us, sort of like it was meant to be.
Wow, that is really cool. So besides doing these books, you're involved in a lot of other boards, and we're down to just like last minutes here. You're going to be teaching here just real quick and down in Purdue?
Yes, so I'm a full professor at the Krannert School of Management. So I'm on sabbatical this year, but starting in the fall, I'm going to go back and teach at Purdue and management school. I teach courses on negotiations. And so
But you'll still be living here?
Yeah, we'll maintain a residence here. We like it up here.
Well, I appreciate you being here and appreciate you sharing all these thoughts and particularly bringing your friends with you on the show. So thanks, and we'll look forward to what you're going to continue to contribute to our region. So
thank you very much for having me on the show, Keith.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay.
I am always grateful for the opportunity to interview an important leader in our region, someone for whom I have profound respect and am aware of the great contributions they have made to the people in this corner of the state. You have been privileged to listen to one of these on this very show. It's nice for a leader to receive a little recognition, but it's not always roses and kindness. Are there detractors and critics? Yes. You cannot satisfy everyone. You will make decisions that are questioned and say the wrong thing at the wrong time. A significant detail may be missed or a comment misinterpreted. You will be unpopular with some and even detested by others. And I'm talking about a good leader who experiences these reactions. It is impossible to be perfect and please everyone all the time. I know it looks great to stand in front of a group of people and be the focus of everyone's attention, to be looked to for answers and wield power. It's not that easy. You must be prepared, able to think on your feet and handle challenging questions. It takes wisdom, patience, and a strong understanding of people, particularly when you are ridiculed, criticized, and dismissed. Courage and composure must be your foundation. Being a leader can appear to be glamorous. You are respected, even admired. But there are days when everything goes right and the next day it all falls apart. You might say, that sounds like my personal life. The difference, in a leadership role, everyone is watching to see how you react and what you will do, in good times and bad. It is said by leaders it is lonely at the top, and you may think, how can that be? A leader is surrounded by friends, advisors, and supporters. True, yet there are times when the responsibility lands squarely on your shoulders. It's a tough job, and someone has to do it. Thanks for watching our show. It would be wonderful to find out what you thought about today's show. You can reach us through our email address on our website, both which are listed on the screen. Public television and radio need your support. Your donations are always appreciated, and your testimonies to others about its importance are also incredibly valuable. Be sure and join us again next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.